Hello, everyone. We are back with more. So we're going to continue. It's time to finally start the trial. February 20th, 9:23 a.m., the Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber. Well, I never expected this. Who would have thought we'd be back here again so soon? We are on a study tour of Great Britain with the intention of learning the country's legal practices. In order to research the latest court procedures here, we need as much court experience as possible. Well, yes, I suppose that's true, but for the person in the dock, it may be his or her one and only time in court, and it could be life-changing. In which case, treating it as research may seem a little crass. Oh, when you put it like that, you're quite right. Good morning! Ah, Mr. Natsume, good morning. Oh dear, are you alright? Your eyes are terribly bloodshot. The early bird catches the worm, as they say here in Britain. Yes, I've heard that expression. But I really don't want to catch a worm. I'm so tired of desperately not trying to wake up early, but I was so worried I couldn't catch a wink! And now, I'm absolutely exhausted as a result. Do all literary people take things so literally? Thank you for putting your faith in us today, Mr. Natsume. I wish I had 9 lives! My whole future hangs in the balance! I'm too terrified to tremble! Really? Because I can feel tremors on the floor. I can't do this. I can't take it. Although, locum student Mr. Naruto Esquire. Yes? I caught a glimpse of the public gallery as I walked by the courtroom. It looked like the opening night of the opera. There were so many people. I had no idea my case was such a notorious affair here in London. Oh, neither did I. Do you know why that might be, Miss Usato? I'm sorry, Mr. Naruto, but I have no idea. So that all-knowing look on your face is just coincidence, then? Don't hide the truth from me! It's because of the Reaper, isn't it? Oh, that was Soseki. Oh yeah, that was Soseki talking. Lord Van Zeeks? Is that right, Miss Usato? I purchased as many different newspapers as I could find this morning, and yes, Lord Van Zeeks is on the front page of every one. I knew it. Sometime after the prosecutor was dubbed the Reaper of the Bailey, he stopped appearing in court, it seems. It's been several years now, in fact, until the day before yesterday. Yes, Inspector Gregson told us something similar, didn't he? The trial 2 days ago marked Lord Van Zeek's return to the courtroom after a very long hiatus. The trial of Magnus McGilded. Ugh, what a harrowing experience that was. I believe that appearance made even greater waves here in the capital than today's. But we wouldn't have realized, of course, having only just arrived in the country. Why is the Reaper back in the Bailey so soon for what appears to be a mundane murder? That's the question the papers are asking, and they all are speculating various answers. Mundane! Mundane! That's the most significant saga of the century to some of us! Oh dear, I mean no offense, Mr. Natsume, but that is how the papers are describing it. Well, at least we also not forget the fact that it could spark an international incident. Obviously, the reappearance of this infamous prosecutor has caught people's attention, but there's another blatant similarity with the trial 2 days ago. Yes, I agree. Locum student Mr. Naruto Esquire, it's you. Me? Well, I suppose that's true. Both times it is you who stands against the legendary prosecutor. It can only mean that you're friends with the Reaper! Please! I don't rub shoulders with Deathbringers. I'm afraid that there really is only one other explanation. It can only be another example, Mr. Naruto, of your uncommon bad luck. Thanks for that. Oh, this is just my luck. Why must I be represented by a man with such frail fortune? By the least lucky lawyer alive! Well, let's not forget that it was you, Mr. Natsume, who asked me to represent you. Yes, it's true that I'm just a student, new to London, with a little in the way of experience or skills, or luck. But, I promise you this. I will fight your corner until the bitter end, and I will believe in you, Mr. Natsume. Oh, benevolent locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. You're not alone here with us, Mr. Natsume. Whatever happens, we will always be by your side. Oh, benevolent non-locum assistant, Miss Mikotoba Esquiress. I am in your debt forever. I shall never forget this great kindness for as long as I live. Mr. Natsume, counsel for the defense. The court is in session. It's about to begin. Kindly make your way to the courtroom at once. Alright then, Mr. Natsume. It's time. Let's go. Yes! This is it. My second appearance in the British courtroom. And my second trial against the Reaper. I hope you're watching over me, Kazuma. Because this time, I won't let my faith waver. I'll believe in my client to the last. Just like you believed in me. I believe I can do this now. I'm ready for this fight. February 20th, 10 a.m. The Old Bailey courtroom. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and the defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is fully prepared, my lord. The defense is ready, my lord. The Nipponese are a truly fascinating breed. Sorry, what? Lord Strongheart has told me all about you. That you are a student who arrived in London but 2 days ago. A mere amateur. Do you have a point? Being a compatriot, you feel compelled to try and help the accused, I suppose. Typical Nipponese arrogance. Forgive me, but I do not believe arrogance is an appropriate description. Sato-san. After all, at our previous encounter, the defendant was found to be innocent. Very true. And a most fascinating, if dark, trial it was, too. The tragic conclusion came later, of course. Here's to the acquitted and his unfortunate, violent end. Thank you, counsels. I see both sides are in fine fettle. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are you ready to carry out your duties here in court as the impartial members of the public? You never know what you might be down on your luck, but I believe in fair play for everyone. Well, I must warn you, I'm rather more ruthless than I appear. Oh well, not me. What you see is what you get. I'm a peace-loving fellow. I'm afraid to say I think it's quite possible that mustached foreigner did the deed. Come on, what are we waiting for? No doubt he did it anyway. Sorry, didn't quite catch that. Very well, let us proceed. Your opening statement, if you please, Lord Van Zeeks. Very recently, the Great Britain signed an alliance with the rising power in the Far East. The accused in the dock today is a student from that same land, a certain Mr. Sosuke Natsume. And while our country has extended this foreign student the warmest of welcomes, regrettably the kindness has not been returned. In fact, this student is accused of the most sinister act. Of plunging a knife into the back of an innocent woman who was doing nothing but walking down the street. A knife crime? I tell you from bitter experience, those are the worst. Bloody oath they are.
Just look at that shallow complexion and short stature. He's one of those dreadful Japanese.
Come on, let's get this over with. With me now, everyone. 1, 2, 3.
Sorry, didn't quite catch that.
Pray forgive the discourtesy of smashing my hollowed chalice here in this great chamber. Allow me to call the first witness to the stand.
Very well. Bailiff, lead the inspector in, please.
Your name and occupation, please.
Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard.
Would you please summarize the events of the case for the court, Inspector?
The victim is thought to be a young woman in her 20s by the name of Olive Green.
I beg your pardon, Inspector. Thought to be?
Yes, having been stabbed in the back by her attacker with a knife, the victim fell unconscious. That was 3 days ago, and she's been comatose ever since.
What? So they don't even know who she is for sure? Comatose, I see. But her life is not in danger. Fortunately for the Eastern student, the charge will not be murder. Pray, elaborate on the details, Inspector.
Sir, if I could ask everyone to look at this street map. As I mentioned, the incident took place 3 days ago, at around 5 in the afternoon. It happened on pavement running alongside Briar Road, a wide thoroughfare for horse-drawn vehicles. I had long since stopped showing as the victim. It had not long since stopped snowing as the victim, Miss Green, was walking down the street. Out of the blue, she was approached from behind by the accused and stabbed in the back. Luckily, the young lady's life was spared and she's currently being treated in one of the city's hospitals. But being unconscious as she is, we've been able to take a statement from her, of course. This is the case file with everything you need to know about the victim so far.
Thank you, Inspector. The court will accept the documents as evidence, if you please.
Case file. File containing an overview of the case and details about the victim. She was found with a knife in her back and is currently in the hospital, yet to regain consciousness.
What of the weapon that was used?
Sir, I have it here. It was removed from the victim's back.
Ouch. That big thing is starting to make me scared of walking down the street now.
With a heavy blade like that, almost anybody would have been able to stab the poor woman. Even the scraggy-looking Sosuke-san, I suppose.
A common or garden jackknife, I would say. Rather nondescript.
Thank you, Inspector. The court accepts the blade as evidence.
A large but commonplace folding knife. It was found lodged in the victim's back.
Now then, what do we know of the motive? Money or valuables, I presume?
Let me check that knife real quick.
Okay.
Her name was gleaned from her personal effects. Other details unknown. The large light, no other signs of injury were observed. Assailant was seen running away, reported by the officers. Okay.
Oh, look here, Mr. Naruto. Just at the tip. A small piece of the blade appears to be missing.
You're right. Well spotted, Mr. Sato.
I wonder what could have happened to it.
Yes. You don't think it could still be lodged in the victim, do you?
Oh dear, I do hope not. That sounds terribly painful.
Okay.
From what we can tell by looking at the victim woman's possessions, it seems she is a poor student herself. Hard to imagine she would have anything of much worth pension, my lord.
I see. Well, in that case, are we looking at some deep-seated resentment toward the victim?
I'm afraid I couldn't say. Apart from visiting second-hand bookshops, the defendant, Mr. Natsume, doesn't appear to get out much. At this moment in time, we haven't been able to establish any sort of connection between him and the victim.
Yes!
If theft and grievance have been ruled out as the motive, what reason could Mr. Natsume possibly have had for stabbing the young woman?
Yet you arrested the man in spite of that, in a totally unjustified and heavy-handed way.
Objection!
Pray forgive the discourtesy of flinging a freshly uncorked bottle into the public gallery. But your words have soured its hallowed banquet. For it is you, my learned friend, who is being heavy-handed here. What? Scotland Yard does not arrest people without good cause. That should be beyond question. Inspector Gregson, the prosecution calls for your formal testimony. Explain to the court precisely why the constabulary came to arrest the Nipponese student. Yes, sir. As I said, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when the incident occurred, and there was an unusually light fog. Visibility was reasonably good, and there was no one else about but the victim and the accused. Out of the blue, the victim was stabbed from behind and subsequently collapsed on the pavement. The accused ran off, scattering his belongings all over the floor, those being a number of old books that he had just bought. He was on his way home from a bookshop, it seems. It was just a matter of working out who the books belonged to, and we found the bloke to arrest him. Old books, you say? Yes, my lord. I have a photograph here of the scene of the crime, taken immediately after the incident. Ah, yes, I can clearly see the books to which you are referring. I will take that photographic print as evidence, please, Inspector. You Nipponese are a spineless breed, too cowardly to admit defeat. Denying everything despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Well, Forgive me, Lord Van Zeeks, but the defendant is not denying everything, as you put it. What are you doing, Mr. Sato? Do go on. Mr. Natsume has admitted to playing some part in the incident. Isn't that right, Mr. Naruto? Well, now that you mention it, when we visited him in the prison yesterday, he did tell us what had happened, what had all happened. As I was walking along the accursed pavement, I could make out a sole silhouette of another ahead of me. A woman wearing a green overcoat she was, and just as I went to overtake her, she suddenly let out a scream and collapsed under the cold, hard slabs of the stone at my feet. I was terrified. I had to get away from there. So I ran as fast as my legs would carry me back to my accursed lodgings. A green overcoat. Why, that's exactly what the woman in the print is wearing. Oh my, a photographic print in full color. What will the world come up with next? The defendant has done nothing more than admit he fled the scene of a terrifying incident. It does not mean that does not mean he is guilty of the heinous crime of stabbing the woman in the back. There was nobody else there at the time, just the two of them, the victim and the accused. In other words, there is nobody who could possibly have stabbed the woman. A fact that the accused concedes. It seems this cross-examination can prove to be pivotal, counsel. Proceed, please. Yes, my lord. Nothing for it. I have to use this cross-examination to turn the tables here. It's our only chance. As I said, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when the incident occurred, and there was an unusually light fog.
Hold it!
A light fog, you say? Well, light for London. You can see the opposite side of the street for once. Not much further, though. That's light, is it? Around these parts, yes. Not something I expect Japanese fellow like yourself to know, of course. I've read that London is famous for its fog. But in my country, people usually imagine that gives the city a rather beautiful appearance. How quaint.
Yes, well, it's not something us Londoners tend to romanticize, as I expect you can appreciate. I see. At this time of year, the fog causes a large number of accidents, especially when it's heavy. Sometimes you can even see your own hand at the end of your arm. Indeed, the other day I was very nearly trampled by horses before I could see the carriage they were pulling. Sada-san and I should definitely remember to stop, look, and listen. However, on the day that concerns us, the fog was somewhat lighter than usual. The fact is no doubt lamented by the accused. Visibility was reasonably good. There was no one else about but the victim and the accused.
Hold it!
How are you able to state that with any certainty? Quite simply, my learned friend, because it was the witness to the crime who has told us. Ah yes, Inspector Gregson mentioned the witnesses yesterday, didn't he? That's right. One of them is a policeman, I believe, from Scotland Yard. That is correct, ma'am. Then we must hear their testimony. The prosecution will, of course, call them to the stand, should it be necessary. Wait a minute. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon in the middle of winter, it would have been dark already. No matter how light the fog might have been, no one could have seen... I am unaware of the situation in your tiny island in the east. But here in the capital city of Great Britain, all main roads are illuminated in the night by gas street lamps. Ah! The prosecution believes there would have been ample light by which to witness the crime. Quite. Here in London, for the first time in history, mankind has completely conquered the darkness. Which means we really need to hear those witnesses' statements. If I could just get through the fog on this cross-examination, maybe we'll be able to. It seems the counsel for the defense is taking stock. Continue with your testimony, Inspector. Out of the blue, the victim was stabbed from behind and subsequently collapsed on the pavement.
Hold it!
From behind, you say? That's right, as you can see from this print. Yes, quite so, Inspector. The handle of this weapon is clearly protruding from the victim's back. And you say the poor woman, Miss Green, remains in critical condition, comatose no less? I'm afraid so, my lord. Yes, she's been treating at Bart's. I was hoping that she'd come around before the trial started so I could take a statement, but it wasn't to be. Well, that is indeed a pity. It would have been most illuminating to hear the victim's own account of events. Luck is on your client's side, it seems. On the contrary, my client has been exceedingly unlucky. Your force of tone is seriously undermined by those disturbingly wide eyes, I'm afraid. The accused ran off, scattering his belongings all over the floor.
Hold it!
Mr. Natsume's belongings? I think you'll find it's all there in the photographic print of the crime scene. Yes, the 3 books on the floor. That's right, my lord. Second-hand books they were. Irreparably damaged after falling in the snow, of course. The accused could have easily carried all 3 books in one hand, which means his other hand would have been free to wield a knife, for example. He's very clever, isn't he? What do you mean? He made it extremely hard for you to assert that Mr. Natsume had his hands full with his books. He managed to close that one avenue of escape we might have had before we even knew it was there. You mean to say the defendant was holding his belongings as he thrust the knife into the woman's back? That must be what happened, my lord, yes. Those being the number of old books he just bought, he was on his way home from the bookshop, it seems.
Hold it!
The defendant apparently visits a second-hand bookshop on a daily basis. Yes, so I understand. A shop full of old English literature. I commend the accused in the lofty subject matter of his scholarly attention. The bloke's room was stacked floor to ceiling with those musty old books.
But can you tell us more about the bookshop in question, please, Inspector? Well, if I must, I'll have to ask you to look at the street map again, I'm afraid. The closest second-hand bookshop to the accused lodgings is this place here, Bourbon Books. A little place in the corner of Briar Road and Mersham Street. As it happens, the accused is currently living in lodgings on the other side of Briar Road at the opposite end. Which means it doesn't take a genius to work out the route he would have taken home. Something like this. Yes, I concur with your conclusion, Inspector. The defendant would have certainly passed the scene of the crime on his way home from that particular shop. Mr. Naruto, I think that what the inspector just told us could turn out to be of vital importance. Yes, I agree. The most important point that the inspector just made being... the crucial detail in which you just told the court, Inspector, is the location of the bookshop. I couldn't agree more. So, where is it exactly? Eh? Are you winding me up, Sunshine? I just explained that. I got the map out and everything. Used red bloomin' ink and drew the bloke's road home for you. I distinctly remember you to nod along, Counsel. Oh, yes, of course. Must have been so nervous I didn't take it in. The blunder of the day goes to you, my learned friend. No, not yet. The trial's only just begun, after all. Mr. Naruto, I would strongly advise you look carefully through the court record at this stage. Yes, miss, at once. Sorry, I made a mistake, miss. Inspector, continue with your testimony, please. Okay, so I think that's where I needed to... Oh, okay. There's the problem right there. Okay, I see it now. The most important part the inspector just made is... Inspector Gregson, may I ask you a favor? What? Would you kindly add the name of the bookshop to your formal testimony, please? I believe it may be of vital importance. Maybe. Oh, well, you know, I mean, yes. It could be a very important clue. Very well, now that I can see it being of any great significance, but please revise your testimony accordingly, Inspector. Yes, sir, my lord. Whatever you say. Could the man be any more sardonic? He was on his way home from Bourbon Books, the second-hand bookshop he apparently patronizes.
Objection!
If I could just stop you there, Inspector Gregson. What is it, Sunshine? I'm a busy man, you know. This is the receipt that we found in Mr. Natsume's room. It was issued on the day of the incident and details the purchase of 3 second-hand books. And you found that in the accused's room, did you? Yes, but the point is not where the receipt was found, but the name of the shop printed on it. Go on. This receipt was issued from a bookshop called Your Books. Your Books? Your, I presume. Yes, my lord. So Mr. Natsume did indeed purchase a number of books at a second-hand bookshop that day. However, the bookshop in question was not Bourbon Books. What? Inspector, do you know of this other bookshop? Yes, sir. Your Books is another second-hand bookshop not far from the Bourbon Banks. It's just that, well, it's such a small place, I didn't think the accused would even know about it. But in fact, that is the bookshop which the defendant visited the day in question, and this receipt proves it. Yes, for what difference does it make? Wherever the man purchases musty tomes, it makes no difference in the final analysis. I disagree. I mean, after all, I have a street map here, if that might be of help. Oh, yes, thank you. Have a look at this, please. If the defendant had really been returning from Bourbon Books, then yes, he would almost certainly have passed the place where Miss Green was attacked. However, if we take into account the fact that he was actually at another bookshop, Your Books, it may very well turn out he wouldn't have passed that location at all. Could that be true? My, it rather depends on where this other bookshop is, but I do declare it may be a possibility. Is that right, Mr. Lawyer? What you just said? Absolutely. It's absolutely could be right. Inspector Gregson, where is this Your Books establishment? Well, obviously we looked into that. It turns out that Your Books is just right here on the next corner of Mersham Street going east. And there you have it. As you can clearly see now... Oh. My learned Nipponese friend is obviously in training to be a clown, the way he regiles us with such witticisms. To your future career in the circus. You put that glass down now, or I'll put it down for you. I didn't think I needed to spell it out, but here we go. If the accused was coming home from Your Books instead of Bourbon Books, there's no doubt he would still have passed the place where the victim was stabbed. Yes, thank you, Inspector. Allow me to reiterate from my learned, if somewhat slow, Nipponese friend. Wherever the man purchased these musty tomes, it makes no difference in the final analysis. Ow! As I suspected, you can't fool me, and I don't suggest you try. What did I say, eh? I've had enough of this now. Beg your pardon, terribly sorry, but would you mind repeating that? Mr. Naruto, we mustn't give up. What do you mean? If the prosecution's assertion is correct, the members of the jury may very well decide Mr. Natsume is guilty. Ah, she's absolutely right. We must think. We must consider the assertion just put forward by the prosecution very, very carefully. They claim Sosuke-san must have passed the location of the incident on his way home from Your Books, but... the assertion just made by the prosecution is fundamentally flawed. Explain yourself, counsel. Yes, my lord. You can see what I mean on this map. When returning from Your Books to his lodgings, Mr. Natsume could have followed the path suggested by the prosecution. However, that isn't the only inconceivable route to take between the two places. If the defendant used the streets, look what happens. He arrives back at his lodging without passing the location where the victim was attacked. Objection! Talking back to a clown is a fool's errand, of course. However, I feel compelled to point out that that route is what is commonly referred to as the long way around. Ah. On a cold winter's night, why would any man choose to take a longer route home? Well, the answer is extremely simple. He wouldn't. In other words, the accused took the obvious route back to his lodgings and is the obvious perpetrator of this crime. But, aha, yes, I got it. Obviously, you must ask the man himself. Ask Mr. Natsume which route he took home. I have already informed the court of the accused's response to such questioning. He claims he has no recollection. That's right. As I said, the bloke seemed to spend his time outside wandering aimlessly from A to B. That day was no exception. He says he doesn't remember where he was or which route he took home. I don't believe this! I thank you, my learned friend, and suggest that we do not waste any more of the court's time by wandering aimlessly around this subject. Pray, what say you, insightful jurors? But even if that's the case, the defense still... I agree with Lord Van Zeeks, wholeheartedly and in every way. What? I don't believe it. Does this mean... We members of the jury are completely convinced now. Very well. In that case, I hereby call upon all members of the jury to present your findings to the court.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty!
Guilty.
It would appear the jury's leaning is unanimous. To the insightful members of the jury, I applaud your brave resolve. You serve Queen and country admirably. Mr. Naruhodo. No, not yet. This isn't over yet. I still have one last chance to sway the opinion of the jury. I have to tip the balance of those scales the other way around. I have to turn this around. Somehow. Those are the eyes of Quarry, yet not willing to give up and die. So I presume you intend to wield your right again in this trial. The right to the defense written in antiquated British law that should have been buried long ago. Call it antiquated if you will, but it's the defense's prerogative to carry out a summation examination if it so chooses. Very well, counsel. In accordance with the letter of the law, we shall proceed with the summation examination. Are the members of the jury ready, Mr. Foreman? Of course we're ready. I am all too familiar with that Nipponese whippersnapper and his uncas refusal to throw in his alley. Very well then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will each explain on what grounds you have determined the defendant to be guilty. For pity's sake, that little Nipponese oddity already admitted it himself, didn't he? If he said that a woman in green collapsed before his eyes, why, it could have only been the victim. The man wouldn't have gone around to the house on his back on the way to the bookshop, not in winter. Oh, the poor woman was attacked from behind, was she? How dreadful. I really don't care. Can we just wrap this up now? I've got work to be doing. Your books, yes. Nice shop, that. But bourbon bulks? No, not worth a visit. With only minor exceptions, the reasons for finding the defendant guilty are all too clear. When the stabbing occurred, the only two people at the scene were the victim and the accused. And the accused himself has admitted to seeing the victim in her green overcoat sink to the ground before his eyes. Furthermore, we have heard from the inspector that the defendant then fled the scene. I must say, I would have ample grounds to convict this man already. Oh dear, even the judge appears convinced of Mr. Natsume's guilt now. Why did he have to run away like that? And how are we supposed to believe in some phantom attacker that nobody could see? This is impossible. How could I possibly make a case for the defense? Mr. Naruhodo, this is no time for grumbling. If we want to force the trial to continue... Yes, I know, I have to turn the tide. I must make the jurors change their minds. Well, 4 of them at least. Exactly.
we have no choice but to forge forward. You have the floor, counsel. Begin your summation examination. Yes, my lord. I just need to keep this trial going somehow, whatever it takes. Come on, Ryunosuke. Oh, sorry. Come on, Ryunosuke. You can do it. Alright. I really don't care. Can we just wrap this up now? I've got work to be doing.
Hold it!
A man's life is on the line here, sir, and this will take as long as it takes. Don't get clever with me now, son. My life's on the line too, and so is my family's. The likes of you wouldn't understand, but a laborer like me can't afford to take time off. And if I don't work, I don't eat, and neither do my wife and kids. Oh, I see. That must be very hard. I go to the union every morning to find out what needs doing, and if you're late to the work's taken, it's tough. This time of year, the water and gas supply lines bursting left and right and center. They're after cheap labor to get those roads dug up and fix it. It's a hard slog from dusk till dawn till dusk it is. So, you were out digging up the roads the day of the incident as well, were you? That's right. In fact, if I remember rightly, it was just round the corner from where it all happened, by that old bookshop, was it? What? Another coincidence? That's right. Mearsham Street, it was. Mearsham Street. On the map, Mr. Naruto, there are only 3 named streets. Juror number 5, I need you to add that information to your formal statement, please. What's the point in that? Can't we just have this business over with now? Please, sir. It's important. Fine, I'll do it then. On the day it happened, I was digging up Mearsham Street from dawn till dusk. Your books, yes, nice shop, but bourbon books, not worth a visit. Sorry, fold it, you say? Fold what? No. What I said was hold it. What I wanted to ask was, do you visit your books often? I like the old bookshops they have there, yes. I enjoy reading them over a nice cup of old tea. That's my daily routine, you see. Same thing every day, including the day you're all talking about. And at what time did you visit your books on the day in question? Well, I was picking out books in there all afternoon. It would have been just before 5 that I left. That's my daily routine, you see. Same thing every day, including the day you're all talking about. Just before 5, you say. Exactly when the victim was attacked. Are you sure about the time? Oh yes, no mistake there. I remember it well. I was not about to forget the day in a hurry. Not after the dreadful time I had. What do you mean? Well, I was walking down Calabash Road when I slipped on the ice and donked my head. It's always worse after the snow stopped falling. That's when it's most slippery. Knocked myself clean out, I did. I really thought my number was up. Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. This happened on Calabash Road? That's right. I live in Cornpipe, you see. Heading down Calabash Road is the quickest way for me to get back from your books. Juror number 6, I must insist that you add that information to your formal statement. It may very well be extremely significant. Sorry? Extremely sick? No, I'm quite alright now. It sends shivers down my spine to hear the members of the jury so convinced that Mr. Natsume's guilt. But I can't help feeling that some of their opinions are rather subjective. I agree. It's relevant to what some of them are saying that sends a shiver down my spine. Still, at least some of their assertions don't actually incriminate Mr. Natsume of anything. That's something. We must use that to our advantage, Miss Naruto. Cunningly. Yes, you're right. Let's listen to the jurors again, carefully. And if any of their assertions are at odds, I'll pit them mercilessly against each other. Yes, don't hold back. Pit them all against each other. Alright. If he said that the woman in green collapsed before his eyes, why it could have only been the victim.
Hold it!
You're right that at the time of the incident, the defendant admits to have seen someone wearing a green overcoat walking ahead of him. Well, quite, that's precisely my point. Clearly, that someone wearing green was the victim. And clearly, that funny little Nepalese man with the disturbing mustache is the culprit. But let us not forget, madam, the defendant vehemently denies attacking the woman. Why, of course he does. If he admits to stabbing her, his life is over. The man is obviously a liver-faced coward, honestly, claiming the woman simply collapsed before his eyes. But if that's a lie, as you're suggesting, do you not think he would have concocted something more credible? Oh, I really couldn't say. After all, you are foreign. Who's to say what goes through your funny little minds? I could tell you what's going through my funny little mind right now, but you wouldn't like it. I do declare the man has already made the admission. He himself has stated that there was nobody else around. Surely the conclusion is obvious. No one could have possibly committed this awful crime. Ugh. And if no one else could have done it, the accused must be the man. Really, it couldn't be more simple. The argument is compelling in its simplicity, I must admit. Oh my, you are too kind, my lord. That went well for her. The man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop, not in winter. On the day it happened, I was digging up Mersham Street from dawn till dusk.
Objection!
These two statements are clearly at odds with each other. At odds, counsel. Explain yourself. Please, don't point. It wasn't me, I swear. What? I was just getting this done and dusted. Well, juror number 3. Oh, me, sir. What do you mean? Juror number 5's words just now are extremely significant. Just take a moment to consider the implications of what's been said on our map of the local area. On the day in question, Mr. Natsume visited this bookshop to purchase a number of secondhand books. And on the same day, we now know that there was work being carried out on Mersham Street, making it impassable, which means the defendant's route home could not have taken him along Mersham Street and down Briar Road. Oh, yes, of course. Wait, what do you think, sir? Well, yes, you can't argue with that, really, can you? We must have had a good 2 yards more of pavement up. Every gentleman and woman that came along had to turn back and go the other way. So, the only conclusion is this. The defendant must have taken the longer route back to his lodgings. Yes, I suppose he must have. I suppose that must be right, eh? Juror number 3, you said the following. The man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop, but we see now that he had no choice. Yes! My lord, Mr. Judge, sir, if I may. Yes. I don't think in all good consciousness that I can say the man's guilty now. Yes, I'd like to see this trial continue so we may get to the bottom of what really happened. What about you, sir? Who, me? Well, alright then. If there's a hole in the prosecution's arguments, it should be filled in. That's what I say. Oh, well done, Mr. Naruto. That was wonderful. Well, we managed to change a couple minds at least. Strengthen our position somewhat. Yes, and it will prompt the other members of the jury to reconsider their stance as well. They'll be asking themselves if their current leanings are really right or not. Now, if only we could just identify one more clue or discrepancy that would make them stop doubting Mr. Natsume. We might be able to tip the balance completely. Yes, that's exactly what we've got to do. Van Zees is looking to bring this trial to an early conclusion. That's what we have to prevent by whatever means we have at our disposal. Thank you, counsel. On with the summation examination, please. Yes, my lord. I slipped over myself that evening on Calabash Road. I knocked myself clean out, you know.
Hold it!
And that was around 5 o'clock, you say, the same time the victim was attacked. I don't know anything about the girl who was stabbed, but my dinner's on the table at the same time every day. And for the record, could you please identify the precise location of your fall? Goodness, it was eons ago. I'm not sure I can remember. It was 3 days ago. Try dredging your memory, please. Well, let me see. It was especially slippery at about... Ah, yes, I remember now. It was just on the corner here. What happened to you then? Were you alright? Well, you don't get too many people down Calabash Road, you see. So there was no one around when I fell, no one around when I knocked myself out, no one around when I came to again, and no one around when I sneezed. So I picked myself up and went back to my nice warm house where my grandchildren were waiting for me. A sad and lonely picture you paint, sir. You were fortunate not to have frozen to death. Yes, how lucky he wasn't more seriously injured. True, it sounds like that was very nearly another hospital admission or worse. Yes, one more thing. Were you wearing that same green overcoat on the day in question? Absolutely. It's the only coat I have. It took until morning to dry it out properly. Good job too, or I'd have nothing to wear here. So count your blessings, I say. I suppose we should... This gentleman certainly has had a close shave there. You changed 2 of the jurors' minds, Mr. Naruto. Yes, now just 2 more. Deliver the finishing blow now. It's time to turn the tables here. I wish I knew how to do a Susato takedown. I suppose words will have to suffice for now. For pity's sake, alright. If he said the woman in green collapsed before his eyes, why, it could only have been the victim. I slipped over that evening myself on Calabash Road. I knocked myself clean out, you know.
Objection!
Those 2 statements clearly show a flaw in the juror's reasoning. A flaw? What are you talking about, counsel? Well, juror number 2, juror number 6. My, whatever do you mean, sir? I think perhaps the old man didn't hear you. Unbelievable. It's not like I was loud or anything. There is at least one fact that we can be sure of here. The bookshop receipt found in the defendant's room clearly indicates that on the day of the attack, he had been to Your Books and purchased a number of second-hand titles. He then returned home on foot, but the man says he has no recollection of his return journey. That's correct, but what he does remember is seeing someone appear in front of him on the way. Someone in a green overcoat who suddenly collapsed on the pavement before his eyes. Yes, we are all aware of this. The poor young woman who was stabbed, obviously. Can we really be sure of that, madam? My, whatever do you mean? I'm sure you heard juror number 6's accounts of what happened to him that day. That same afternoon, there was someone else apart from the victim who was wearing a green overcoat and who fell over on the icy streets in that neighborhood. Oh my. My goodness. You mean... That's right. I'm referring, of course, to hard of hearing juror number 6. Are you really suggesting that the person in the green overcoat whom the defendant saw collapse in front of his eyes was the jolly old gentleman at the end of the bench here with me today? That is entirely possible, yes. After all, the old man has a somewhat similar build to the victim. Well, would you look at that? My goodness me. Sorry, you need a pee? And crucially, we know precisely where the old man in the green overcoat fell. On Calabash Road. Therefore, if the person who Mr. Natsume saw collapsing in front of him was in fact juror number 6, it means the defendant must have taken the long route back to his lodgings. And if that's true, then clearly... the crime scene on Briar Road where the woman was stabbed was not on his way home. Oh my! You idiot old man, if you hadn't been so daft as to be roaming out there,
We'd have boxed off this hours ago. Oh, really? What were you thinking wearing such a befuddling coat? What did you say to me? It is a crime for the elderly to walk the street these days, Is it a crime to slip over on the ice? Is it a crime to keep up with the latest styles and wear a beautiful green overcoat, is it? My lord, I do hope it won't cause any inconvenience, but... You'd like to change your leaning, I presume? I do declare that I would. I should like to call for a verdict of not guilty. Thank you. And I would too. What? It is a crime to change your mind, is it? Well... Well, that summation examination has concluded with a rather large shift in opinion. And the ayes 2, the noes 4. So the noes have it, not guilty, they say. Which means no longer have the consensus among the members of a jury. The trial will continue.
Objection!
Could it seem churlish of me to drink from my hollow chalice moments after raising an objection? Only to crush it in disgust. Pray forgive the discourtesy. Lord Van Zeeks? It seems I must retract my earlier remark. What do you mean? I mistakenly credited these jurors with intelligence by describing them as insightful. Yet, we have witnessed them falling for a cheap trick performed by an Eastern entertainer. Eh? Whatever do you mean? I haven't tricked anyone. Everything I've said is the truth. Indeed. Stalwart juror number 5 was undoubtedly repairing the road as he claims. I believe you said it was a good 2 yards of pavement which you had excavated, sir. That's right. Took me the whole day, and they've paid me a measly 2p for it. Now, my learned Japanese friend, tell me, do you have any notion of the distance that 2 yards represents? Well, if I'm honest, I don't have a clue, no. 2 yards? It's a little less than 2 meters. Less than 2 meters? That's not much at all. In other words, a distance readily vaulted by anyone of moderate vigor. Would you not agree, my stalwart friend? Me? Well, I can't say you're wrong, no. What? Did you not perchance erect a sign to prevent pedestrians from passing the site of work? I wouldn't dream of it. What a waste of time. No coaches would have had any hope of passing anyway, and we just turned any gentlefolk back where they come. Kids just jump right over us all the time. The accused is no gentleman, as far as I can see. I have little doubt, however, he could have spring over the 2-yard trench with his meandering around town. Ah! Is that true, is it? The incontrovertible truth is that the books just purchased by the accused were found at the scene. There can be no doubt that on his way back to his lodgings, Mr. Matsume walked down Briar Road. Crush in a single sentence. And, old man. Cold man, you can talk. You say that at around 5 o'clock in the day in question, you slipped and fell on Calabash Road. Pray, was there a suspicious-looking Nipponese behind you at the time? Oh, I can't say as I remember. You don't remember? How about a wager, my learned friend? You say it was the old man that the accused saw, but I would lay 1,000 to 1 against you being able to prove it. Ugh. Order! Order! Lord Van Zeeks, explain yourself. My lord. If you had such a trenchant argument up your sleeve, why in the world did you not prefer it during the summation examination? I wanted to give this young foreign student the sightseeing experience he no doubt came for. I wanted him to see for himself how the opinion of the jury is so readily swayed. Ugh. But my hospitality has its limits, and they have been reached, I feel. So, my learned friend, today's sightseeing tour of London is now over. What are you talking about? My lord? The prosecution requests permission to call its next witnesses to the stand. Granted. Bailiff, bring forth the witnesses. Its next witnesses.
Mr. Naruhodo, don't you remember? We've been told several occasions that there were eyewitnesses to the incident.
Yes, I remember. One of them being a Scotland Yard policeman, no less.
I'm afraid it's likely to be the prosecution's next witness.
Alright, no matter who Van Zieks brings to the stand as his witness, and no matter what they say, I believe in Sosuke-san. I know he's innocent. And I'll keep believing that to the very end, until this battle is over. Witnesses, please state your names and occupations for the court. Constable Rolly Beat, sir. Nothing to report on the street, sir.
And I'm Mrs. Beat. Patricia's my name. I'm proud to say I'm this young town hero's wife.
What's the story here?
Well, in truth, we've not been married long. In fact, we celebrated our first anniversary only the other day.
No. It was your husband I was asking about. He seems tired. Hardly surprising. Whilst being an honorable occupation, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world. Oh, really? I'm sure I've heard that before, actually. Indeed, apart from rare days off, our gallant officers trudge some 20 miles a day, you know. They patrol boarding houses and pubs, collect taxes, survey the streets, check the meters are reading true, and they're responsible for keeping the streets clean and lighting and extinguishing our street lamps. There are a number of items on that list that don't sound like much like policing duties at all. I wouldn't just be falling asleep on my feet. I'd have collapsed long ago. But it goes without saying that a policeman's primary duty is the apprehension of criminals. Even when he's off duty, a constable is expected to investigate and resolve any crime on his beat. For the London Bobby is a man of honor. And a man of slumber. On the day in question, this man and his wife were walking down Briar Road in the opposite direction, and they witnessed the incident as it occurred. Is that not correct, Mr. and Mrs. Beat?
That's right, sir. Isn't it, Rolly?
Constable Rolly Beat, sir. Nothing reporting on the streets, sir. What a great witness he's going to be. Very good. I'd like to hear your formal testimonies now, please. If you will tell the court exactly what you saw on the afternoon of the incident. Yes, sir.
It was our wedding anniversary, and Rolly was taking me out for a meal. There was no time to change after work. Anyway, two silhouettes appeared out of the fog in the pavement in front of us. All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed on the floor, and the other scattered something before running off. We ran straight over, of course, and then went for help at the nearby police box. It was definitely that Japanese man on the dock. Rolly and I both saw him as clear as day.
Well, this is extremely compelling testimony, I must say.
Oh dear. This policeman and his wife are claiming to have positively identified Mr. Natsume at the scene. If their testimony is true, the alternative course of events that you establish in the summation examination will be quashed.
It's death knell, in fact. Because that alternative was never viable in the first place.
What an unfortunate behenching. And on your wedding anniversary, too. Oh, I know. But I still managed to go out for the evening with my man. I thank the Lord for that. Gosh, the life of a London bobby sounds very hard indeed.
Indeed. However, this cross-examination will be over in minutes. You may well have time to rest this afternoon. What do you mean by that? My learned friend, the witnesses saw the face of the man fleeing the scene. They are testifying under oath that it was without doubt the accused, Mr. Sosuke Natsume. And one of these witnesses is a policeman, no less, so you appreciate the gravity of the situation, I'm sure. Except that the man's so tired, his wife has to do all the talking. Enough preamble. Counsel for the defense, commence the cross-examination, please. Yes, my lord. It was our wedding anniversary and Rolly was taking me out for a meal. There was no time to change after work.
Hold it!
No time to change after work, you say? Are you also a member of the police, Mrs. B?
Oh no, sadly not. It's a job for strapping young men only. Women, children, and the elderly can't even apply.
Well, I think you could probably see why children and the elderly can't do the job, can you?
I think Rolly looks ever so handsome in his uniform. It suits you down to the ground, doesn't it, darling?
What? I just finished my beat. Pat and I were heading home. We're heading back to the station. I was actually planning on getting changed there. Is he talking in his sleep? This is creepy.
Oh no, Rolly, I much prefer you in a uniform. Sometimes I don't recognize you when I see you in plain clothes.
Oh dear, that doesn't seem healthy. Kindly adhere to the point. You were going for a meal after you had finished your beat for the day, correct? That's right, sir. Yes. Although I was fit to drop, to be honest. After spending the whole day on my feet. But policing is my life, sir. As long as I'm a proud owner of this, I'll serve my city and my queen to the end. What's that now? My warrant card, sir. Proof that I'm a London copper. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty to patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. Sir, and for such a noble cause, I cover 20 miles every single day without fail and without a grumble. Because I know that the plodding of my boots is all Londoners need to hear to feel safe and secure. So, fighting crime doesn't appear to come into it then. But sir, just on that one day in particular, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. Beat puts up with a lot being married to a bobby like me. I wanted to show my dear wife how much I care.
Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. Oh, what a charming couple. Their young love is such a joy to behold.
If a little over the top, perhaps. And then, kindly describe what happened next.
Anyway, two silhouettes appeared in the fog on the pavement in front of us.
Hold it!
Two silhouettes?
That's right. They were coming towards us, walking up by a road in the opposite direction. They were a rather plump figure, followed by a scrawny, thin-looking man. That does sound exactly like the victim as pictured in this print, and like Mr. Natsume.
Yes, unfortunately it does. And you're certain that at the time there was nobody else nearby?
Oh, quite certain. Oh, yes, quite certain. It was dark, but there's streetlights on Briar Road, you see. There was nobody else around at all. Isn't that right, my darling?
Huh? What? Ah, yes, that's right. Of course, there was light fog on the ground.
but Barrow Road is dead straight, and you could see a fairly long way down the pavement. And then there's the street lighting as well. I didn't see any other pedestrians. Before sleeping takes firm hold, your answer please, Mr. Beat. Are you quite sure of what you just said? Yes, sir. As a cop who spends all day every day keeping watch on the streets, I'd swear to it, sir. I'm as sure as my love for Patricia is true. Oh, Oh, Rolly. They still maintaining there was no one else around other than the victim and the attacker. It's starting to seem like it must be how it really happened. It's beginning to seem like there's nowhere to run. Well, that didn't stop Mr. Natsume, did it? He fled the scene all too convincingly. Thank you. I believe we have a reasonably clear idea of the situation just before the incident now. What happened in the crucial moments that followed? All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed on the floor, then the other scattered something before running off.
Hold it!
Scattered something? What do you mean by that? Oh, well, I couldn't quite make out what it was at the time. But then, when we got closer, we realized what it was. Didn't we, darling? Huh? What? Ah, yes, that's right. It was some old books. I see. Old books. Yes, sir. The culprit had dropped a number of them, all around where the victim was laying on the pavement. Indeed, as clearly pictured in this photographic print. That rotten Japanese man did when he did the deed. Let's not forget that it remains to be established that the defendant was indeed the attacker. But we saw him. It was the man in the dock, without question, sir. The mustache, the hunched back, the cat-like eyes, the top mouth, the snub nose, everything. Any more insults you want to throw in? That's right. He looked down at the poor, defenseless woman with those terrifyingly intense eyes, and then suddenly threw his books on the pavement and ran away. I see. This is tough. They seem as though they're telling the truth here. May I remind the court that this unambiguous testimony comes from a policeman and his wife. Now please, continue. Yes, sir. We ran straight over, of course, and then went for help at a nearby police box.
Hold it!
Was it your husband who went to fetch help? No, I went. I may not be a police officer myself, but I am a proud wife of one, after all. Isn't that right, my darling? What? Ah, yes, that's right. I asked Mrs. Beat to go. I was off duty by that point, but a Bobby's never truly off duty, of course, so I felt obliged to stay and guard the scene. Very laudable, Mr. Beat. Preserving the scene of a crime is a task of considerable importance. That's why I sent Patricia, you see. I told her where to find the right police box. Forgive my ignorance, but what do you mean by the right police box? Depends on a crime's location, you see, as to who deals with it. Where the woman was stabbed wasn't actually on my beat, so I told Patricia the way to the police box for the beat the incident fell under so she could go and report it. I ran there as quickly as I could and asked for help from the Bobby on duty. There was nothing more potent than a young couple in love working together, you know. And thanks to your swift response, the case was quickly resolved. The actions of two model citizens. Oh please, you're making us blush. Isn't he, darling? Yes, sir. What Patricia said, sir. Let's move on, shall we? It was definitely that Japanese man on the dock. Rolly and I both saw him as clear as day.
Hold it!
But surely you wouldn't have been able to see his face by the light of the gas street lamps, would you? We absolutely could. Us Londoners have exceptional eyesight, I'll have you know.
Right.
The light from the street lamps was more than enough, and my husband already told you that the fog was already light, didn't he?
Yes, and what of the fog? We're famous for it to across the globe, I believe. But it is an absolute menace to those of us who have had to live with it, of course.
Oh, it is. When it's thick, you can't even see the hand at the end of your own arm.
Yes, alright, I take your point. Now, could you stop shaking your husband about?
The constant fog makes our eyes very sharp, you see. That's why we can tell you for certain that it was this little Japanese man we saw. Can't we, darling?
What? Ah, yes. It was the accused, and no mistake. The mustache, the hunchback, the cat-like eyes, the top mouth, the snub nose. Unmistakable, sir! As far as this couple's testimony is concerned, there can't be any question. It was Sosuke-san that he saw running away from the scene of the crime. So that's it, is it? That's their entire testimony.
What do you think, Mr. Naruto?
Well, I hate to admit it, but on hearing the testimony, it really does seem as though Mr. and Mrs. Beat saw what they say they saw. Mr. Natsume running away from the scene on Briar Road that day.
Yes, I feel the same.
So, if that's true, where does this leave us?
The members of the jury are sure to call for a guilty verdict after this testimony.
Oh no, then what do we do?
If Kazuma-sama were here,
What are you trying to say?
I think he would try to find a contradiction somewhere else within their testimony.
What do you mean, somewhere else?
Their statement is about seeing Mr. Natsume as unequivocal. Calling that into question won't help, but if you could identify some other part of their testimony which appears to contradict the facts, you might be able to discredit them, to make the jury doubt if the pair's memory of that day is accurate.
Oh, right.
Put simply, we must focus on finding a discrepancy in these statements somewhere. If we don't, I'm afraid the trial may reach an early unfavorable conclusion.
Why do I always have to be so up against it?
Mr. Lawyer, sir, can I ask you something?
Oh, yes, of course. What is it?
Well, you keep asking us all these questions about everything we've told you, so... It seems like you don't believe our testimony, is that right? Is it? Well, out with it!
What? No. It's really not that at all.
My husband's a policeman, remember? And I remember every last detail, everything. Oh, I know. What about the books the man dropped? I could tell you the names of every single one, every single one. And you dare to question how reliable my testimony is?
That will do, Mrs. Beat.
No, it won't do at all. That Japanese lawyer has no idea what I'm capable of. Even if I decide to forgive him for insulting us, don't think for a minute that Roly will.
I really didn't mean to cause offense. Please put your husband's fists down.
Perhaps you would like the opportunity to supplement your testimony, Mrs. Beat.
Might that appease you?
Oh, thank you, my lord. That would settle things nicely. Wouldn't it, darling? I could even tell you the names of the 4 books he dropped at the scene.
Objection!
So, you're saying that there were 4 books?
That's right, I remember all of them. The picture of Monsieur somebody, What's Its Yearning, A Meal for Someone, and Thingamy something.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Beat, but there's a fundamental flaw in that statement of yours.
Oh no, what flaw?
Simply that at the scene of the crime, there were only 3 books, not 4.
What?
I have a good look at this photographic print at the scene of the crime. As you can clearly see, there are only 3 books.
But no, that can't be. I saw them. Oh, I know what it is. Yes, you can't fool me.
Sorry?
It's that big old lump of the dead body. That lady so large, her corpse is blocking the view of the fourth book, that's all. Let's at least try to remember that the poor woman isn't dead, even if we're insulting her size. No, I'm sorry, Mrs. Beat. But Mr. Natsume could not have possibly dropped the 4 books you describe. Why not? Fascinating. And from your asserted tone, something you can readily substantiate with evidence, I presume. Ah, evidence. Counsel, you will present evidence to substantiate your claim or withdraw it. What proof you have the accused did not drop 4 books?
Take that!
The evidence is right here, in the form of this bookshop receipt. From your books. Yes, this receipt details Mr. Natsume's purchases that day, but as you can see, only 3 books are listed. No! Therefore, Mr. Natsume wouldn't have dropped would have only dropped 3 books at the scene of the crime. Which means that your powers of observation, madam, cannot be relied upon. So, it cannot be denied that though you say it was the defendant you saw, you could very well be mistaken. Oh no. Oh no, oh no, oh no, no!
Objection!
It's plainly evident that it is your powers of deduction that cannot be relied upon, my learned Nipponese friend. What? What cannot be denied is that these 2 witnesses saw the accursed running from the scene, a fact that you know very well you have no hope of disproving. Ah! So you've stricken to avert attention from that by dint of some inconsequential discrepancies. Would that be fair? Ugh, he sees right through me. But your plan has somewhat recoiled against you. What are you talking about? It's quite simple. Let me explain with a toast. To the policeman's wife and her entirely accurate testimony in every respect. Oh. You see, the matter is not up for debate. At the scene on Briar Road, a total of 4 books were most definitely found. But what about the photographic print? It only shows 3 books. Quite right. Only 3 can be seen in that print. That print? What? You mean to say... Allow me to present another, one that shows the victim's hand. I don't believe it. It's the 4th book. As you will observe, the 4th book was hidden from view in the original print by the victim's torso. No. No! Order! Order! There, you see? Look at that! Look! Yes. It's just like I said, isn't it, my darling? Yes, sir. Patricia's always right, sir. Let us study the receipt for the books purchased by the accused on the day in question. Mrs. Beat, the titles once again, if you please. Ah, yes, of course. The picture of Monsieur somebody or other. The picture of Monsieur Lecoq. What's it, yearnings? Canterbury yearnings. A meal for someone. A meal for Gaboir, in fact. As the court has just heard, the witnesses remember the book titles flawlessly, save for a few minor details. Mrs. Beat's powers of recollection can only be described as exceptional. Did you hear that, Rowley? The gentleman paid me a compliment. Yes, sir. Flawless, sir. Patricia is flawless. But there are only 3 books on the receipt, and Mrs. Beat mentioned 4. There's nothing surprising about that. Clearly, the 4th book was which shown in this photographic print. I'm sorry, counsel, but does that not seem odd? Why should the 4th book be omitted from the receipt? It's not odd at all, my lord.
As the photograph clearly shows, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, it belongs to the victim. The victim was holding her own book? I wonder, what became of that fourth book? Obviously, it wasn't overlooked by the investigating officers at Scotland Yard. I have it here, as evidence. You will submit that and the aforementioned photographic print to the court, please, counsel. My pleasure, my lord. The prosecution rests. Oh, look at this. The book has been badly burnt. You're right. You'd never be able to read it in this state, especially not the latter pages. What a terrible waste. Judging from the scorched edges of the paper, I think the damage must have occurred very recently. A book recently damaged by fire? Why does that raise a red flag with me? I have nothing further to add. What? You seem surprised, my learned friend, but your resistance until now has been in vain. Entertaining, yes, but futile. The spurious longer route of the accused lodgings that you tried to establish in your summation examination, and the attempted discrediting of the witness's power of recollection in your cross-examination. Futile? I walked right into this, didn't I? You see, everything we said is true. Isn't it right, my darling? Yes, Pat. Marry me, Pat. So, perhaps the ladies and gentlemen of the jury would like to reconsider their positions. Should the court waste any more time on this Nipponese travesty? Or is the decision you have to make all too apparent already? You have heard all of the witnesses and seen all of the evidence. This trial has run its course. Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid we are in a terribly precarious situation. I know, but if I fight back in the wrong way now, it could very well just make matters worse. Think, Ryunosuke, think. What do you do now?
Objection!
I'm not done yet. No, my learned friend, it's over. That last cross-examination was your final chance to establish a credible defense, and you failed. The die has been cast. There's no more room for debate. Well, it might be over as far as you're concerned, but... I can't think of what to say. If I may, Lord Van Zeeks, it seems somewhat boorish to close down the debate at this point. Your insignificant little Eastern Isle must be a lawless hole indeed, for a lowly judicial assistant to have the audacity to intervene in a moment like this. Oh. I am, to my shame, still a very inexperienced lawyer. So you will have to forgive me, but I consider my assistant's advice essential and her opinions invaluable. Mr. Naruhodo? One of this land's great guiding principles is tolerance, so the court will hear you, madam. Go ahead, Mr. Sato, please. Very well. Pray, what insight can you give us? What we all have overlooked in this matter that you see fit to pursue further? Well, the court has been presented with new evidence, but only after the last cross-examination finished. I see. And you believe that this new evidence warrants further examination, do you? Mr. Naruhodo, what do you think? It's just possible that this new evidence might be the decisive proof we've been waiting for. The judge is sure to ask the members of the jury to announce their leanings in a moment. And of course, he's sure to ask you to explain what that crucial piece of evidence is and why. So we must take this opportunity and examine the newly presented evidence as thoroughly as possible. Yes, I understand. And thank you, Mr. Sato. This is it. Sato-san has managed to win us one last chance here. I can't let it go to waste. The defense wishes to present evidence, my lord. Very well. The defense may present one further piece of evidence. Evidence that apparently offers a profound insight into this case and has hitherto been overlooked.
Take that!
The evidence in question is what we can see from the newly presented photographic print of the crime scene. The fourth book found in the victim's hand. We have already discussed the fourth book at length. Other than it being in the victim's grasp at the time of the incidents, no significance has been attached to it. Pursuing the matter further would be a flagrant waste of the court's time, as you well know. Well, yes, I'm afraid, counsel, I must concur with the prosecution on this matter. When I afforded you this opportunity, you led the court to believe that the evidence in question certainly a hitherto undiscovered clue. So I must insist that you elaborate, counsel. You will identify this clue at once. Do I make myself clear? Oh, yes, my lord. It's, Mr. Naruhodo, I believe the prosecution is trying to avoid a thorough examination of the evidence, which means you may very well be on the right track. Yes, I think you might be right. So, counsel, precisely where is this vital clue to the case which this fourth book conceals?
Got it!
I would ask the court to observe the back of the book in question. The back? What do you... Good gracious! It's been burnt to a crisp! So, we would have to ask ourselves, why was the victim clutching what was clearly an unreadable book? It is undeniably an extremely unnatural thing for her to have been doing.
Objection!
Unnatural, you say? And what of it, my Nipponese friend? Oh. Were I to concede the point, if it bears no relation to the case, there is nothing to discuss. So should you wish to assert that this fire damage is some veiled clue as to what happened that day? Pray, do enlighten us all. What truth does this charred book hide? A charred book. There's just one possibility here which I can't quite bring myself to rule out. It's an outside chance, certainly, but worth a try. Alright, I'll explain my theory. Don't keep us waiting any longer then, counsel. Explain this theory of yours. What are you suggesting that you can ascertain from the fire damage this sorry tome has suffered? My lord, the burn on the back of this book reveals a startling truth about the book's owner. I beg your pardon, but we already know who the book belongs to. The victim was gripping it in her hand when she fell on the floor. After all, it's obviously hers. The question of how this book came to be in the victim's hand has yet to be answered. However, as to the questions of who the book really belongs to and where it originated, the defense has very credible answers. Good gracious, how could you possibly? Very well, I'll play along with this futile attempt to delay your inevitable demise. But do remember, the members of the jury may well burn you if your little gamble goes awry. Counsel, the defense's response here is very likely to influence the final outcome of this trial. So tell the court, who do you claim is the owner of this burnt book?
Take that!
The answer is that book belongs to the couple who owns the house where the defendant has his lodgings. A certain Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb, the landlords. And whether this is some extraordinary coincidence or just some kind of fate at work, I don't know, but of all the people in London, one of the 6 chosen for the jury duty in this courtroom today is none other than Mrs. Garadeb herself. Oh my goodness, me? I think you must be mistaken, sir. I'm not Mr. Garadeb's wife. I'm his maid. Things would be so much easier if you would just drop the pretense.
Alright then, how about a simple question for you? Have you ever seen this book in Mr. Garadeb's house? I would never presume to know all the books he keeps, sir. This is outlandish behavior. This woman is the accused landlady, you say. You implicate this hard-working member of the public. You besmirch her without a shred of evidence. Your actions are unforgivable. This is not mere conjecture. The defense happens to know that on the day in question, at almost exactly the same time as the victim was stabbed in the pavement below, another incident was taking place in the room on the top floor of Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's house. Good lord! What sort of incident, counsel? A fire, my lord. Afraid to say it was. Happened in the blink of an eye, you know. The whole place filled with smoke. Couldn't see a bally thing. Didn't take long for the fire to spread, of course. The bally furniture started going up as well. Worst of it all, I lost my favorite. Book called The Lion's Pride. The Lion's Pride? By Jove! The very same title as the subject of this debate. Oh dear me. This is risible. All you've told the court is that a book by the same name was involved in a fire, in which case it would be reasonable to assume that it was burnt to ashes, and entirely unreasonable to infer it to magically remove itself from the scene of the crime. Perhaps it would make more sense if I told you that the cause of the fire was marital discord. Without going into details, it appears that Mrs. Garadeb was considerably enraged. Apparently, she continued to attack Mr. Garadeb even amid the flames. Oh, how awful! I can't imagine being so horrid to the one you love. Can you, Rolly? Absolutely not, sir. My Patricia would never raise a finger against me, sir. I had all my favorite old novels in that case, but as soon as the fire got hold of them, that was it. Whoosh, up in smoke. Then the wife started hurling things at me. There I was, back up against the window under heavy enemy fire, incendiary books coming 10 to the dozen. The man had his back up against the window, and he had burning books thrown at him. Goodness gracious, are you suggesting that the book was thrown through the window and landed coincidentally at the scene of the crime? No, a thorough investigation of the surrounding area was conducted the very evening of the incident, and there's no report of the Garadeb's window pane being broken. That's quite true. We also saw no signs of broken glass when we visited the Garadeb household. But it is not conceivable that the window was open at the time and not even remotely. Let's not forget the season and the chilling weather that accompanies it. No Londoner would even leave a window open in the middle of winter. Does the defense postulate this scenario in all seriousness, counsel? Do you earnestly claim that the book found at the scene was a flaming projectile thrown by Mr. Garadeb's wife? I believe it's a possibility, my lord. That's quite enough. Well, I hope that everyone here could see for you what you really are now, you little foreign trickster. You call yourself a lawyer, but here you're just a coward. A mean coward. Really? Claiming that our little tiff set the whole neighborhood alight. Honestly. Implying that I'm merely posing as a maid for appearance's sake. How could you? It's nothing to do with this beastly case, not any of it. All you've done is sully our family's name. No, I assure you that was never my intention. Dragging up upstanding citizens' names through the mud simply to divert attention from your failing defense. I should box your ear. That's what I should do. It's utterly unforgivable. Too right. Here we go. How long have we had to sat here now, listening to this Naponese spouting out his fancy foreign theories? But, think about it. At the end of the day, the only person who could have possibly stabbed the victim is that little hunchback with a mustache, and he ran away from the scene, too. I do declare you're right. It's true. Yes, what did I tell you?
Makes sense to me.
Eh? Sorry? What's that? Well, it would appear that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury are once again in full agreement. What is your position, Lord Van Zeeks?
In truth, my lord, I feel those have been unnecessarily protracted proceedings, but then one must always exercise patience in order to savor the best vintage.
No, wait! The mystery of the fourth book still hasn't been...
If books are your predestination, my learned friend, study them on your own time.
What? No, forgive the discourtesy this time? Ahem. In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will now state your individual decisions regarding the defendant's culpability for the court to hear.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Thank you for that unambiguous response. That's twice now. It's over. Mr. Naruhodo, don't give up. Mr. Sato, have you forgotten? The battle isn't over yet. You're not suggesting... Of course, the defense has the right to another summation examination at this point. You could still convince the jurors to change their minds. You have one more chance.
My lord, the defense has to exercise its right to a summation examination. You believe you still have tricks up your sleeve. I don't intend to trick anybody. I intend to uncover the truth. This is no time to be a downcast. As long as there's a chance, I have to stay strong and determined. To be continued. Alright. That's probably going to be it for stream today, because I have a whole bunch of other things that I need to do right now. So we're just going to cut it off there, and we'll pick it up next time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. For those of you watching on Twitch, check out my YouTube. Those of you on YouTube, check out my Twitch. If you like what I do, you could follow my Twitch and also check out my YouTube channel. And if you like what I hate repeating myself. I suck at English. Yes, if you enjoy what I do, why not follow my channel and subscribe to my YouTube channel? If you ring the bell, you get notified on my uploads. And you'll be a part of the Fox Army. But with that, that's going to be it for the stream. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Till then, see you then.